Welcome back everyone to our Welker Farms map here in Farming Simulator 19. And the workday has begun here at Welker Farms. We need to get some grass mowed on both fields 3 and 4. Some things have changed since we were last together, as I let you know they probably would in the last video, as I'm always trying things out. And it just seems like using the Krone mowers, which I've done quite a bit in the past, in Farming 17 as well as Farming Sim 19. Let's see, let's get this guy lined up a little bit better. Make sure we don't miss any off the edge. These guys just seem to do the most efficient job, even better and quicker than the mower with the single mower in the center on the front and the two spread out in the rear. So these guys, I have replaced all of our mowing equipment with the Krone mowers. So we are in very good shape now. First thing I did, you can see another Krone mower there in the rear. Let's go ahead and pull up our map. We've got some interesting things in store for today. We're going to be adding a new animal enclosure here on the map, and we'll have to see exactly where we want to do that. But right now, we have fields 3 and field 4 being worked. Both of those have grass growing on them. And you can see our Krone mowers are doing pretty good. Even though we just got them started, they are very efficient at what they do. Very nice working with as well as speed alongside. So while these guys are up and going, I'll let them get a bit of a head start before I get the tedders started. And this is where it really works out great for me that I've divided each of these fields into 2 parts. That enables me to get more AI working on them without having to worry so much about collisions. It's always a possibility because these guys will come together here in the center, but it's much less likely than if I were trying to do a lot of AI equipment on the same field at the same time. So in this case, it really works out well. We'll end up with probably 8 or 10, maybe even up to 12 operating at the same time while we're going, and the CPU seems perfectly fine with that. Another thing we want to do today is, of course, we got to take care of our cows. So I know we got some cleaning to do because I noticed quite a bit of a mess in front of the cow barn. So we'll take care of some cleaning there, maybe some water. Not sure how much water they need, but we'll take care of that as well. You also notice that we've got quite a bit going on right here in the center. You can see all of my tracks. I have not done a whole lot of landscaping because mostly I wanted to see what areas of the field I was using before I start doing landscaping and put in roads and everything. And you can see there's a lot of things, but I'll probably end up having a nice route right through here and running lengthwise as well. So things are really starting to take shape as far as how I'm using the different areas for storage all in through here, as well as some storage over here on field 2, or excuse me, area 2. It's not really a field over here. This would be field 2, which we are not using currently. So everything is going really well right now. We have quite a bit of money to spend. We are making a ton of money on milk, and we can always add to that with selling some cows as time goes along. But overall, no complaints from me. I am very excited to see where we can take this next. All right, let's see where these guys are. Okay, he's on row 3, and this would be the most recent of our additions. Okay, so now we're going to head back over to the cow barn for just a moment. And today, the new animal enclosure I want to add is for the sheep. Now, the sheep are an interesting addition to the farm because they take quite a bit of work in order to make money off of them. And, you know, loading all of those pallets, we'll need to purchase some new equipment so that we'll have a trailer for all the pallets we'll be creating here very shortly. Let's go ahead and get this guy started and let him clean up the mess. That's actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be when I got over here, so that won't take him too terribly long to fix that. Next, let's move over to the milk, and let's see if, yep, we're maxed out on the milk. So looks like I needed to do this a little bit earlier. All right, so let's go ahead and move to the left, and you can see that's going to get us about 2 million, almost 2.1 million. We'll press OK. That'll get rid of all of the milk. So yeah, we're at a point now where normally the way I take care of the milk is that as I am feeding the cows, I'll come over here and take care of our milk as well. But we're at a point now where we have more milk being created by the cows than we can really handle on such a schedule of 2 or 3 days out. All right, looks like our water is coming fine. You can see new water is pumping in there. And here's your animation. For those of you who might not be familiar, this is the Animal Pen extension mod, and this is really the only way I can deal with an operation of this size, because we have so many cows that I would have to have a continuous supply of water without that piping. So let's go ahead and come into our animal information, and you can see right now we have just shy of 3,000 cows, about 45 minutes. Every 45 minutes in game time, we get a new cow. Also, you can notice we've got hay, which is what we are cutting on fields 3 and 4, 1.1 million. So we've got a little bit of a buffer, but with this many cows, 1.1 million is about a day's worth of feeding for these guys. So cleanliness is fine. It'll be at 100% once we get done with that. And water is doing fine as well. And you can see we've already started to create a little bit of extra milk as well. So let's see how we're doing on our cleaning. Looks good. This guy, actually, let's move over. Let's get him a little bit closer. Shouldn't need to move him any closer. Should be able to take care of that. But just in case, we'll go ahead and move him forward to make sure he can clean up all of that. Now what I want to do is come in under the storefront, and let's go to animal pens, and let's go ahead and grab a large sheep pasture. Now this particular sheep pasture, it says 5,000 is the limit. That 5,000 really doesn't end up being the number. I simply put that in there by doing a manual edit on the XML file just to give us the max number, which ends up being usually around 4,100 and something, I believe. So we're not too terribly worried about that. But mostly what I care about is, let's see, how are we going to place this thing? Let's take a glance. All right, how much room do we have before we get into the storage? Okay, we've got plenty of room to deal with. We'll only need one of these. That's the beauty of doing the editing to the XML file. I like, for visual purposes, only having one of these. It makes it a lot easier on the CPU and the graphics card as well, not having to render 2,000 cows or sheep or whatever. All right, let's do, I think I like this. If you press the C key, then you get the grid snapping, and I like this. I like this quite a bit. I like them, everything, the way it's facing, all of that. So now let's run over. This will give me plenty of room between these two enclosures to make a road system and so on. So let's see what we got to deal with as far as leveling this out. You can definitely see we've got some hilly terrain here that we need to deal with. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on that. We'll come back to landscaping, and let's see. Let's go ahead and just try to smooth some of this out. For right now, we'll just deal with the areas immediately around, and then we'll come back later on and do some more smoothing as needed. But right now you can see, if I zoom in here, there's definitely some smoothing that needs to be done. But again, right now we just want to get some basic work done. There we go. Mostly on these corners. Looks like over here closest to the cow barn is where we need the most work. So we'll do a little bit over here. Now we'll move over to the side and see if we can't smooth this out. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect, just enough, just good enough so that we don't have to worry about tipping over any of our equipment as we come over to take care of these guys and get them fed and watered. right, you also notice the icon right here. That is for the animal pen extension, so that we can add the automatic watering in here, or at least semi-automatic watering. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Still more work to be done there. As you can see, it's still leveling this land out as I go over it, but that's not too bad. I can live with that for right now. Also, while we're taking care of this, it's giving our mowers a chance to really get a lot of field work done before we get the tedders and the windrowers out coming in behind them. Okay, we won't actually be purchasing any sheep today because I need to give a little time so that we can do a little bit more field work. We're going to need a new field in order to have some additional grass for these guys, which means that we need to get another field planted, because I don't believe there's another field planted with grass on this map. I believe I have taken all of those. All right, let's take a look at our handiwork. And not too bad. Certainly a lot more work to be done here, but overall, not too bad. Okay, let's go ahead and purchase the water fill point. Only $4,300, as well as the maintenance per day. So tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. is when the plumbers will be by to get started on there. Here you see where the feed will go. In our case, grass will go there, water right over to the other side. And then, of course, here in the front is where we're going to end up getting our pallets, as well as purchasing our sheep over in this area. All right, not too bad. Now let's actually move over. Let's see, where are we here? We are on the wrong side. We need to get over on the other side. And wow, this thing really just does not want me to get over there, doesn't it? Yes, it's convinced that we need to stay right over where we are. In fact, is it ever going to let us over there? Where are we now? We are back once again. Excellent. All right, there we go. So let's just go ahead and hop out. We also need some water over here in the orchard. So a lot of work to do here early on in the workday. So I say early on, it's almost 10:30 in game time. That is certainly not early in a farmer's world. But unfortunately, that's how far I had to go to make sure that everything was ready to go and ready to be harvested. So here you can see our big bud equipment. This is what we use whenever we purchase new fields, and they need to be sown, in this case, with grass. So let's go ahead and come out to our menu. So we've got field 3, then we purchased field 4. Now we're going to move over to field 5. And what we're going to do is purchase field 5, and then I'm going to cut off part of this because I don't want to have to deal with this stuff that is sort of in the middle and any of the issues that might cause. And besides, I don't think we're going to need all of this grass anyway, so we don't necessarily have to worry about maximum efficiency. So we're going to click on lands, field 5, which is a little over 1 million. Of course, we have plenty of money for that. Let's go ahead and buy that. We'll come back out, and next we'll come in and do a little bit of landscaping. All right, so we need to come over this way and make some decisions on how we're going to get this done. All right, let's go ahead and change the size here, get this a little bit bigger. And all right, that should be pretty good. And I'm going to cut it off about right here. About right there, I believe. So let's go ahead and move over to choose our terrain. And let's see, what do we want to use here? Do we want to go with... Okay, that's not bad. We'll just go ahead and use this same texture as I normally like to use for our roadways on the farm. So we'll get this done. Actually, it looks like it's a little bit of a hill there. So this will enable us to cut the field off, and that way when the AI are working, they won't be tempted to venture over onto this, in our case, the right-hand side of the field right now, because we'll end up using this for storage, and who knows what we might end up doing with this area of the field. But for right now, that will take care of our needs. I'll actually come back over later and probably add grass over into a portion of the field like I did on the side here, just to give us some room if we need to move equipment between these two fields. There actually is collision here on these power poles in between, so we'll have to be careful with that when we're moving equipment in between fields. All right, let's go ahead and get out of that. Come back into our big bud, and let's go ahead and get this thing unfolded. You can see that our grass seed is already selected from where we did it in our most recent field, which would have been field 4. And our mowers are, wow, they're taking care of business. These guys are over halfway done. And that's on field 4, which was not the first field that I got started on. All right, so now we've got all of this extra land over here, which will be great for additional vehicle storage as we continue to expand. Gives us plenty of room for that. Also, at some point, I'll want to put a maintenance shed out, so we'll have room for that as well. Let's go ahead and get moved over right to the edge. Again, I'll end up getting rid of some of this, some part of this in the future, but for right now, we're going to get over as far as we can, and let's get this guy hired. Make sure he's on his way sufficiently. Again, he is sowing grass seed, and just to make sure that that's the case, we are going to back out, and there we go. See, if I uncheck the grass, you can see there's nothing there but with grass. So that's just a way to verify real quick to make sure that you're getting what you need that's actually being sown in the field before this guy gets too terribly far along. So this isn't going to take him all that long to do. It's a great size field, but with the working with these big buds offer with their equipment, it does not take very long. All right, so now let's work our way back through, and let's just get started with the tedders. You can see the windrower and the loading wagon. Everything has a dedicated tractor with it because, honestly, that's more fun for me whenever that is the case. It gives me a chance to purchase more equipment, and the more equipment I get to purchase, the more fun I get to have in this game. All right, you can see here we've got our fertilizer right on the front of this particular tractor. Actually needs to be, no, it's actually lowered already to give this guy a little bit of a view of what he's actually doing. Looks like we missed a little bit on the corner there, but that's no big deal. That'll all come together just fine once we get things up and going with the windrower. The game has a great way of not punishing you for missing little areas like that. Once it gets all lumped together, because the overwhelming majority of this grass is now hay, then it will be no issue. It'll all just simply become hay when it's picked up by the loading wagon. So we'll reverse things a little bit right here and get started working on field 4 with the tedders, and then come over to field 3. And you can see this mower this was the first one I got started on field 3, and he's only got a couple of more rows to go, and he'll be done. All right, so no danger here of catching up with the mower. Every once in a while I get a little bit too excited about getting these guys started, and it doesn't work out so well for me. All right, looks like our line is a little bit better. We've made it to the edge this time on the field. Now, long term, you notice we've got more of a standard fertilizer on the front here using the chemical fertilizer. We've also got quite a bit of slurry from our cows that we could use in the future, but right now I've stuck with this method of fertilizing because, well, it's the most efficient. We can simply attach the fertilizer to the front of this tractor and combine 2 steps in one. All right, let's now work our way through quite a bit of equipment till we can get back to our other tedder, which is, in fact, we're just going to hop out right here. This will get us started on the western portion of field 3. Let's see, we'll go around the long way. All right, and once again, no collision on these poles that are running through the center of the field, which is a great idea by the map creators. I greatly appreciate that. All right, let's see. Let's get him up a little bit closer. He didn't like it when I tried to get him started and he was too far back. Here on the tedders for field 3, you can see we don't actually have our fertilizer spreader on the front of these. It's actually on the windrower for these two pieces of equipment. And the good news is it seems to work out just fine regardless. And that's not always the case with the AI in this game, so I'm happy to report that this usually goes off without too much of a hitch. All right, so we get our fourth and final tedder underway. Let's actually fast forward a little bit here. In fact, we're over to the water tanker. Let's go ahead and see if we need to refill our orchards. I'm sure they can use at least a little bit of water at this point. There we go. Let's see how much they need. Okay, not bad. About 1,600 liters. I have not expanded the number of orchards we've had because I've been focused so much on the number of cows we've got and expanding that and number of fields and all that kind of thing that the orchards have sort of taken a sideline at this point. But we'll get these guys refilled. You can see the automatic watering is underway right now on the fields, or excuse me, the orchards. All right, let's take care of this fourth and final one. Then we'll bring our water tanker back over, let it refill, and then this guy will be done for a few days. So actually, we could let this go several more days before they actually ran out of water, but I like to keep them topped off and not let them get too terribly low. All right, so we'll let this guy fill back up. In the meantime, let's come back over, and you can see when we are working through this field very quickly. This guy is on what we think that's probably row 3 or so, maybe 4. So not bad at all. Now we'll work our way through the mowers just to see where they are, and the answer to that question is getting very close to the end. In fact, I see somebody has just gotten done. So that should be one of our mowers. And I'll tell you what, let's get back to the mowers real quick. And sure enough, there he is. The very first mower I got started on the eastern portion of field 3 is now done. So we'll get him back over to the storage. And then we'll come back out and probably be about time to take care of the western portion of field 3 as well. He's probably already done or very close to it. All right, we'll get this guy pulled in here and parked. And sure enough, there he is. He's ready to go as well. Now, in the case of the western portion of field 3, all of these guys are using this area around field 2 as their storage. So they're sort of off by themselves. You can see the tedder is coming right along on his work. We're going to give him a little bit of time before we get the windrowers started. Remember, we started field 3 with the tedders last, so these guys are probably about a row behind. All right, so we won't start these guys up just yet. In fact, let's move through a couple of these tedders and see where they are. So field 3, the western portion, he's finishing up on his second row. Here, same thing, finishing up on the second row. This is the eastern portion of field 3. And let's move our way back out. Oh, poor farmer, we are just demolishing his crop right here. Eventually, hopefully that will be our field, so we won't have to worry about it anymore. But for right now, yeah, we are running all over this poor guy's crops. All right, this is looking really good. We're going to have a lot of grass on this map. All right, so this guy is almost done on the eastern portion of field 4. Looks like he's got about 1.5 rows left realistically. Yeah, same here. He's finishing up, so he'll have about a couple of rows left, and he will be done. All right, so our tedder here, you can see it is doing very nicely on the eastern portion of field 4. He is several rows in, so field 4, we are, in all likelihood, we're fine to go with the windrower. They're probably not going to be able to catch up, which we certainly don't want them to catch up. Yeah, field 4 is in great shape. Now we're back over to the windrowers. Field number 4. Now for our windrowers as well as loading wagons, we have course play courses for these guys. I would actually love to use course play a lot more, but there are a few bugs that I'm waiting to get ironed out. A few things that aren't quite working the way I need them to before I go and use course play for everything that I would like to. But I'll use the same course for the windrower and then come right behind that with the loading wagon. And those courses need to be identical to make sure that the loading wagon is actually running over the right area on the field. All right, so let's make sure this guy gets up and going. And sure enough, yep, everything looks good. And you can notice once everything is moved to one center swath, then all of the hay and any small amounts of grass that might be on the edge here are simply combined in together. So no issues there. Let's grab our other windrower. So right now, just to give you an idea, before we get into sheep or anything in dealing with a new field, right now it takes about an hour in order for me to get all of this done, the entire process for the cows, from mowing, tedder, windrower, and then finally loading wagon, and then ultimately unloading the loading wagons into the feeding trough for the cows. It takes about an hour, roughly, give or take, just depending on how aggressive I am with the number of AI working on a particular field at a given time. All right, let's get this guy ready to go on the first waypoint. There in the distance, you can see that first waypoint. We'll get him lined up as best we can. And then have him on his way. So we'll give field 3 a little bit of extra time for the tedders since they got a late start. But, all right, this is looking very good. And at this point, we can get the loading wagons started pretty quickly here. We don't have to give the windrower a whole lot of extra leeway because it hasn't seemed to be needed. All right, let's actually come back out. I want to get back over to, let's see, where are we here? We've got so much equipment, sometimes it's hard to tell. All right, let's come back over to the cows and see how we're doing. So we're all set with the sheep for right now. I've got a little bit more landscaping to do, a little bit more leveling to take care of. But let's come back over, and it looks like we are in, yeah, we're in good shape here. Let's go ahead and move this guy back out of the way. Turn him off. All right, there we go. That's perfectly fine. So now, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and pull out The old landscaping tool again. And let's do a little bit more work over here in this area. All right, let's see. I'm thinking a nice path right down through here would be nice. I'm not going to put one sort of in between the fields, or at least I don't think I am. We might, you never know. But that's a little bit of a ways down the road. So let's go ahead and get a fairly wide path here. So this will give us an area to move some equipment through, make it look a little nicer than the way it has been looking. All right, we're going to have just enough room here. Yep, just enough room to get this path. All right, let's actually turn around this way, get everything rotated over, and we'll bring the path through here as well. The great thing about the landscaping tool in this game is if we decide that, you know what, I don't like this design, this texture, you can always go back over it and change it to something else. It's no problem at all. Okay, now we'll rotate over in this direction, and we'll actually come off of this. Let's make sure we get a continuous line here. When you get to the edge of the map like this, sometimes it gets a little bit tricky. But right now I'm liking this texture. That is very nice. Not sure it makes sense in real life to use this type of texture to run heavy equipment like this over, but for our purposes in the game, it looks really nice. All right, how close to the road are they going to let me get? Okay, that's about it. So we can't get quite to the road, but I do like this quite a bit. In fact, let's go ahead and make sort of a pathway up here. I don't need the entire thing. Let's go right there. And this will not be even, I'm sure. But that's okay. Okay, yeah, it's certainly not completely even, but I like that. That looks really nice. You can see we got a little bit different texture over here on this side. I'll have to decide which one I like better ultimately, but not bad. So now we've got our farm is really starting to take shape. In fact, let's go ahead and just play around. Probably not going to be anything else I put over in this area. So let's go ahead. Let's bring this all the way back down. Just for the look of it. I like that. Still a little bit of work probably done, left to be done cleaning that up, but I kind of like it with where we are right now. All right, let's move back through. We should be ready to get field 3 up and going. Looks like you can see where the tedder has been, and it looks like it is far enough ahead that we can get started. All right, so we want this guy to start on the first waypoint. And let's get him roughly into position. Drive course, and he'll be on his way. See, there's a little bit over here on the far edge that he's not grabbing. That, of course, is not a huge deal. Let's grab our other windrower. So at this point, we'll be ready to come back around on field 4 and send out the loading wagons. Then we'll give it a few minutes over here on field 3 before we start the loading wagons. All right, here we go. Start on the first waypoint and drive course. So pretty simple, and you can see we've got a lot of AI working on these fields. All right, let's move our way through our equipment. And let's see, we're not ready for this guy yet. That is for field 3. All right, yeah, that's plenty of a head start. There's no way the windrower is gonna catch up there. All right, let's get back over, and wow, work is going really well on field number 5, our newest field. You can see it's only going to take him a couple more rows and he'll be done. So this big butt equipment is amazing. All right, let's get our mower out of the way. And the tedder is more than halfway done with the field. So again, everything is working very nicely. So these cows, with all the work that we put in with the different stages to create the hay and so forth, it is certainly worth it in the long run. And as I mentioned earlier, it gives me a chance to purchase quite a bit of equipment, which is always nice. Now this guy, the reason he has stopped right here is actually my fault. This is not the AI's fault at all. This is my fault, and we're not going to worry about this area that he's actually missing. You can see I cut off part of the field there as I was changing the texture and doing a little landscaping over here. So we're not going to worry about that last little bit of grass, as that was entirely my fault and not the AI's problem. All right, some weird texturing. You can see it's part of it is wanting to show me that it's grass on the field, but the part that is nearest to us in the circle is showing that, well, we just got through sowing that portion of the field, so it's not exactly ready to be looking like freshly mown grass just yet. All right, let's head around. So in the long term, with the western portion of these fields, I might add some more storage over in the field 2 area down there, just for these guys, so we don't have quite as long of a run back over. But for now, it's certainly not a huge hindrance. Here you can see all of the area that I have cleared up on the sides to move equipment back and forth, way more than what we need. But again, with the power lines running down through the center, I didn't want to take any chances, because we got some nice size equipment with the big bud and so on that we need to get maneuvered in between these fields from time to time, and I didn't want to take any chances. All right, let's get this guy taken care of, and we'll get started with the loading wagons. Looks like we've got about 3 more loading wagons I need to get started, one of which is right here. All right, so once again, this guy is using the exact same course as our windrower, and you can see he's ready for 4 east. Let's get him started on the first waypoint, and we'll let this guy get going. Okay, same thing here with the western portion of field 4. We'll run this guy over to where he needs to be and let him get going. All right, in the meantime, let's take a glance over. Let's see, there's the windrower. The tedder is several rows ahead of him. So everything is coming along nicely. I have purposefully not gotten the equipment too close together. I've given them a pretty wide area to work with, a little bit more than what I usually give them. I usually get them a little bit closer, and sometimes that ends up meaning that they run into each other and have collisions. So to stay away from that, I have backed off of that a little bit for today's video. All right, now this guy is up and running. Let's go ahead and hop out. This is field 3 on the west side, or excuse me, the east side. Oh, it looks like somebody is blocked up here. We'll have to see if we can figure out what that is, if it continues. And it's gone now, so it looks like he might not have actually been blocked. All right, Let's make sure this guy gets started. And sure enough, there he goes. He's picking up that hay without any issue. So now we'll move through. Let's see, tedder's going good. Nothing around. Trying to see who was blocked by an object, at least temporarily. As these guys come together in the center of the fields, that's probably where it was. Because it looks, I don't see anything so far. Okay, now we need to get started with the western portion of field 3. Same thing here. We want him to start with the first waypoint. Make sure he's on field work down here at the bottom. All right, there we go. So you can see the windrower has a head start, a nice size head start on him. So now everybody is up and running. All of our workers are currently up and running on fields 3 and 4. Our mowers are now done. So the next thing that will be done is the tedders. And then once they are all done, we'll be ready for the windrowers and finally the loading wagons to be done and emptied out into the cow barn. How about this for the perfect working width? This guy is going to get done without a half portion of a field to go down again. That's really good. I like that. I'm waiting for this field to make a liar out of me, and it turns out it doesn't work a little bit at the edge. But so far, it looks like this is going to be his very last row. So we'll hang in there with him, and you can see he's headed a good bit away from our farm, which is actually located back in that direction. So we'll hop inside, and what a piece of equipment. Wow, this thing is not only massive, but how can you even see everything out of this thing? I mean, we've got dual wheels on this thing, the dual tire setup, and you can barely see the edges of the tires there. So very nice. All right, we'll let him finish up here, and then we'll bring him back over to the main farm. So our video is going a little bit longer today, but I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to see as much as possible of what goes into a day here at Welker Farms when you're dealing with cows. So it takes a lot of grass, a lot of hay in order to feed the cows. And just imagine if we were trying to get up to 100% productivity and getting into additional silage. And of course, then we would also need to get into straw as well. All right, this guy is done. Not sure. He's turning around there like he was going to go again. We don't need him to go again. So we're going to hit our way back through. And you can see we need a pretty wide area to get through right here. We're going to go around this pile. And I notice another helper has been blocked by an object. Hopefully that doesn't last very long and create a huge mess. We can only hope. There we go. It disappeared, so we're good. The only downside to the big butt equipment that I have come across, and this is an extremely minor downside, is that the tractor itself doesn't go that fast even when... Now we've got... Oh yeah, we've got a huge problem now. We've got blockages everywhere. Let's go ahead and stop this guy. And instead... Yep, there we go. We've got... All right, let's go ahead and back you out of the way. And you can see it's only temporary that he even has a problem. So he is almost done. We'll get this guy lined back up. So a little bit of better planning on my part, and we could have avoided this as well. All right, so that looks pretty good in getting him lined up. We'll get him back started. So this way, once we're done, our fields will be fertilized at 100%. And then in about 3 to 4 days, we'll be ready to come back in and cut once again and start the process all over again. But as I've mentioned in the past, I continually test things out to see if I can get the same work done more efficiently without getting too crazy with it. I have to keep in mind the total number of AI we have working at any given time. If you get too many out there, sometimes the AI goes a little crazy. So there are restraints that you have, unlike in real life, where the restraint is money and time rather than the number of AI workers. So this guy is nearly done. He's got about, we'll say 2 more passes there, and he'll be all set. And you can see the windrower has caught up to him very nearly. You can see he's only 1 row behind. Loading wagon doing very nice over there. Let's see how we're doing here. Same thing here. The windrower is now only 1 row behind. So this is where I usually get caught. I usually end up with the tedder getting caught by the windrower because I don't allow enough time. Get a little ahead of myself. But in this case, it looks like it's going to work out just about perfectly. Let's see how we're doing over here on, let's see, where are we here? Is this field 3? It is field 4, actually. All right, so it looks like the tedder's got about 2 more passes in order to be completed with this field. So on field 4, they're a little bit farther ahead of the windrowers than on field 3. And of course, that's because field 3, we got those started last. All right, there you can see the tedder. Actually, it looks like the tedder is about done over there. He's very close to the end. Let's ride along for just a moment with the loading wagon. Get rid of that interface. We don't need that. And you see at the bottom of the screen, it's telling us that it has about 17, 18 minutes left before this guy is done with his route. So once again, we're a little bit behind my normal schedule of about an hour for the entire process, but not all that much. It's still about an hour and very enjoyable, quite frankly. This is how I enjoy playing the game. Sometimes I will hop in and actually run one of these routes myself, but for the most part, I really enjoy running this more like a tycoon type of game where the AI have their own set routes and set jobs to do, and I take care of some of the other tasks that we need to get done around the farm, and that works out great for me. I know some folks who don't hire AI for anything. They like to do all of the work themselves, and that's certainly understandable, but is not my preferred way of playing the game. All right, let's go ahead and come back out. Let's head back over to our cows. So we've done everything we can do for the sheep for right now. I'll come back and do a little bit more of landscaping, but otherwise, in fact, let's see how much milk we've already gotten in this small amount of time since we've sold it. So we're closing in on 10,000 liters there of milk. Let's go ahead and bring this guy back over and let him finish up. Get him a little closer, and there you go. You can see he didn't have to be very close at all in order to pick up that little bit of extra, just to keep this area clean for when I bring the loading wagons over to fill in the troughs. So once again, we have quite a few cows here, and hopefully we'll have quite a few sheep in the coming days. So we right now have just shy of 3,000 cows, with a new cow coming along about every 45 minutes. So that's going to do it for today, a day in the life of a cow farm operation here at Welker Farms. Thank you very much for joining me, and stay tuned as we will continue Farming Simulator 19.